Alrighty, we're going to be reacting to the current state of Path of Exile 2, Dawn of the Hunt. This is from Rax. Make sure you come over, show him some love, subscribe, like the video. Rax always makes great content, but let's get to watching. I'm going to keep my chat up on screen though, because we're watching this on stream. And let me really quickly fix my audio settings so the stream folks can hear the video as well.
Path of Exile's Dawn of the Hunt update for about 17 hours. And the interesting thing about this launch is it was one of the most polarizing things I have ever seen as a launch in an ARPG. So some people absolutely love it, and some people really, really don't like it, and kind of everything in between. And I wanted to have a
17 hours is a pretty long time, respect to Rax. And I do agree, this has been a very polarizing league start. Like, I was having a good time playing the campaign, and then I got off and I looked around me, and it was like coming out of a house after the purge, like, and your house didn't get raided. Like, my house is chilling, everything's vibing, and I look around and everything's on fire. People are shooting stuff. Like, it was crazy. People were so mad. People are so mad about how the game feels right now.
As I possibly can. A constructive conversation about my thoughts on it and some things that I saw from chat spamming for 17 straight hours, and also share a couple of thoughts that were shared on the internet, one from Grinding Gear Games and one from our friend Neversink, the loot filter goat for Path of Exile. So let's cover just a few things that this patch was trying to accomplish that, at least from my experience so far, went pretty well.
I'm gonna slap his video into 1.25
speed. The endgame
speed.
changes are better. Honestly, the endgame was probably the worst thing about POE 2, and the changes sound pretty decent, so I'm guessing.
I would agree with that. I think the campaign in League 1 was extremely satisfying. The endgame was satisfying, but reasonably hollow, and I would say that's to be expected based on everything they described.
Saying that the endgame is better, but hopefully that statement ages well. But one thing, at least so far, it appears they've done a nice job of is nerfing the outliers, right? The stat stackers that just AoE pentakill everything. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not stupid. People with theory craft something godly again and again and again, but at least they're trying to rein it in here. It seems like they're doing that. As Callie is playing with her squeaky toy behind me. God,
this is true. They nerfed the shit out of the top builds.
Gems. That's nice. A lot of the gems didn't really seem that useful, but at least they're there and they can tweak it and make it more interesting. I noticed I play this game a lot. I had already 800 hours in just the previous patch. A lot of the visuals, a lot of the little things that they've changed. You do the trials and it says floor complete, trial complete. Some of the indicators that they have throughout the game, they look pretty good. There's tons of bug fixes.
I agree with this part too. The game feels more like a fully released game right now, just because of the UI interface and like the little things that are like not directly related to balance and progression. Feels a bit more like a fully released game just based on how it feels and what you're getting on screen.
Say what you will, the bosses are now bosses. Yeah, you're going to learn the boss mechanics now because you're going to be fighting them for a while, and that's probably how they should be, right?
100%. I did not know the mechanics at all in League 1. I never learned the mechanics on bosses because they died in 5 seconds.
So moving toward the vision. And another thing that I noticed in the campaign is I had a lot more crafting mats than I've had before. Like before, I was just living off of yellows. Whatever yellow dropped, that's just whatever I used. I actually had a good amount of transmutes and augs. I was getting a lot more runes and the different kinds of runes. Callie.
Same. Yeah, way more runes. Way more runes. I have like 20, 30 augments, 10 transmutes in Act 3 or Act 1 Cruel.
To make my stuff, sorry. So anyway, the point of that conversation is they are doing some good things. Path of Exile is improving. It's in early access. Okay, whatever. Now let's get to the part that you were probably all waiting for. What are some of the negative, or what doesn't feel quite right about Dawn of the Hunt? So many conversations. I think what it all boils down to is the general pacing of the game. For most of the campaign, unless you're playing a very, very well-oiled machine, a very good build that's theory crafted with very, very good gear, you're going to feel weak. And you're usually going to feel weak in terms of damage, and in terms of defense, and in terms of crowd control.
I'd have to slightly push back here just because, unless I just got really lucky, which I don't really think happened, I mean, my build didn't feel like particularly difficult to put together, and I don't have particularly good gear. Like, I'm running around with, magics and some rares here and there, but my gear is pretty mid. If I go in game, I mean, I've got a freaking magic amulet with all ats. I've got a 12 evasion, 5 dex, ruby ring. I have an iron ring with max life regen. I mean, this is an Act 1 cruel. I got through Act 3 Doriani with this, no big deal or no problem. I've got a 16 strength belt. I mean, my gloves and spear are good, but my gear overall is pretty mid. My resistances are shit. Got 15 fire, and it didn't feel too bad. Um, so I don't know. I don't know. I think the problem, or part of the problem, maybe one of the reasons why a lot of people are having a negative reaction to the patch is because it's out of place for an ARPG to just have this level of difficulty this early into the game. But I'm not immediately convinced that that's actually as bad of a thing as a lot of people that have been playing ARPGs for 10,000 hours seem to believe. Um, Not to say that I haven't played a lot of ARPGs. I've played Wolcen, I've played Diablo 3, Diablo 4, PoE 1, PoE 2, but it really doesn't feel that bad to me. Like, it actually does give me, it's still giving me that Elden Ring vibe. I mean, when you go into the first zone, Clearfell, if you don't dodge the mechanics on the ground, you can die. And it's the same thing in Elden Ring. Like, you can die immediately out of the tutorial. So, I don't know.
When
I
I
mean,
got
it,
to
it gives you a start. It gives you a starting point for your character to progress. And I'll say that for sure. My character already feels significantly better in Act 3 or Act 1 Cruel than it did in Act 1. And I think that's good because it actually feels good that my character's improving.
Act 3, most of my deaths were from these little light stuns from the projectiles that some of the monsters would throw out. I just get stunned just for a brief moment, and that was enough to get me killed when like you're running for your life with how powerful the monsters are. Even the trash mobs like sometimes feel like each of them are Ragnaros with how fast they come after you. And they just murder you instantly. They're insane. Um, so the whole time I felt like some people are calling it a giant slog, whereas other people say, oh, thank God, like we finally have something to fight. I can see both sides, but I think in general, more people feel like it's just so difficult to go through. So another thing about that is in general, like just to explicitly call it out, they know this. We've been begging a game like Diablo 4 to add difficulty, add rewards to the game. Been begging them. It's just way too easy. Everything is just free. We don't get to do anything. So we
Correct.
can't necessarily do the exact same thing when PoE 2 adds it and then say, no, 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 we hate it, unless we can actually articulate like what's wrong here. And the way that it feels to me is the way that the difficulty is added into the game. Here's how it feels to me. Feels like Grinding Gear Games got together and they say, we want the combat to be meaningful. We want the choices to really matter. We want the game to propose challenges all the time. And so that's exactly what they did. They put challenges everywhere. It's challenging right away from the second zone. In the second zone, like I walked in after killing what's it called? The Miller boy. Go to the town, go to the next zone. A wolf can bite me for like 60% of my health. A wolf, just one, the first wolf.
Yep.
And the witch that casts
This
like
is
her
like
little
Elden
spell
Ring.
like on the ground can 100 you. Don't ask me how I know that. Just boom, gone out of nowhere. It's like it feels like they just
And I think the developers are probably asking themselves this. They're probably trying to figure it out. But we, the players as well, should try to answer this. Is that good or bad? Because, I mean, it is what it is. And it's not inherently good or bad, I think. So, collectively, a decision has to be made there about should you be able to walk through Clearfell pretty much with your eyes
Shout
closed
out for
and
the
not worry.
sub.
Yo, Tracker with the Twitch Prime sub. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much, my man. But yeah, should we? I mean, those of you that have played PoE 1, after you go through the beach tutorial zone, the first town, you go into the second area, like the second beach, basically, before you get to the Roa nest place or whatever. you can pretty much walk through that with your eyes closed. Um, so it's like, which one do we want? Like, do we want it to feel more like Elden Ring, where you're immediately being challenged, or do we want you to be able to walk around with your eyes closed and get through it? Or, I mean, maybe ideally we want to meet somewhere in the middle, but
Just spread difficulty evenly.
I will say it is hard to meet in the middle because the moment you make it to where the witch in Clearfell that he's talking about, you stand in her little on the ground AoE effect and you don't die. Like, it's like hard to make a middle ground there because it's so significant. Whether or not it one shots you or not is pretty much like that's the pudding. That's the difference
Everywhere
maker.
throughout the game, on the trash mobs, in the zones, in the ascendancies, and the passives, and specing your character, in the itemization, and this and that. It's just everywhere. And I wish that it was a little bit more strategic. Like, for example, it's not exactly the same genre. If we think of a game like Elden Ring, you're going through the trash.
Oh,
It's not
here he
so
goes.
hard. You get to like the big gate of the castle. Now it's pretty hard. You can see the cannons and the archers. You got to make a plan. Okay, you get past that. Okay, then you go through and you get the sense. Yep. Oh, yep. There it is. There's the big, huge boss. Here's the big fight. There's like ebbs and flows to it. It feels like
This is true. I mean, I do agree with this, I guess. And PoE 2 could probably work on that a little bit, although it does kind of have that. Like, the beginning of Act 1 still feels easier than when you get to the manor. Like, the actual castle that Geonor is in, or whatever. I mean, that shit sucks. Like, the chaos damage and everything, that is way more difficult than Cemetery of Eternals, or whatever. So,
without a really
let me start my update really quick.
optimized build, you are constantly being hunted all the time. Whereas, give them a little bit of a chance here, bam, big fight, da 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 da. So, tied to this a little bit, this is something that I think really, really takes away from the fun aspect or the dopamine is building your character. And let's talk about ascendancies and the passive tree. So, when I play Path of Exile 1, a game that is very refined, it's had years and years and years and years of development. Whenever you do your first ascendancy, a lot of times those first 2 points are just incredible. Like, they actually just completely change your character. I remember they nerfed it, but when I got Butterboy, that big golden avatar, that thing just was so insanely powerful that when I beat the lab, I was so happy. I got this awesome reward. It actually really changed the way that I played the game, and it was really fun. It made me really look forward to overcoming that challenge for the reward. And another one is like, I can't remember what ascendancy it is, but one of them gives you like your endurance charges, power charges, and frenzy charges are set at 4. You just get 4 of each of them in PoE 1. And in PoE 1, the charges actually do something. It's something like that. When you get that, you just feel so much stronger. It's just an awesome feeling. When I played Huntress and Lich today. When I played Lich today and I ascended, I took the node that said you have to spend 3% of your energy shield on a spell cast, but you do 30% more damage. I'm like, okay, I have energy shield, no problem. But then I played it for 10 seconds.
Yeah, I'll hop back into the
Shout
game
out for
here.
the sub.
Yo, Stamsin with the Twitch Prime sub. Twitch Prime sub. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. We almost have a level 1 hype train. Get some more Twitch Prime subs. Appreciate you, fellas. If you have one unactive that's going to waste, feel free to drop it. And don't worry, we're going to hop into the game right after this video. We're going to finish reacting to this first, though. I think this is important. I mean, the game's going to be around for, let's face it, PoE 2 is going to be around for a long-ass time. But I really enjoy these types of conversations. It's one of the reasons I really like Rax, is because he's like a very level-headed individual, and he kind of looks at the game from a holistic perspective. He's taking as many different types of players' perspectives into consideration. He's not like just a blaster. He's not just a beginner. I think he's actually looking at it for like the overall health of the game, and he truly cares about the game and like the new player experience and stuff. So I do actually really like these types of conversations, and I think they're also very important for the health.
Guess what happens? You have no problem managing your energy shield as a resource to do this extra damage. You're feeling good about it, but then a monster hits you. and then you have to wait the entire time they're chasing you. You got to wait for your energy shield to go up even a little bit to cast a spell. You can't even cast a spell until you gain that little energy shield back. If you run over a patch of fire or a poison, or you get hit by an arrow, you have to wait the full duration again. And when you do your first ascendancy, you don't have all the energy, faster start of energy shield recharge nodes. You don't have them. So it takes forever for your energy shield to even recharge.
This seems like a playtest issue. I mean, surely that shouldn't have made it to the live launch. I feel like if you don't have Energy Shield and you take that Lich Ascendancy node, you should still be able to cast your spells. It should just not give you the damage bonus. So that seems like a bug. But I'm surprised to see that even made it into the live launch. Like, that seems kind of bad.
So you say, well, Rax, you're a dumbass. Don't take that one first then. Okay, well, it is at the beginning of the tree, but you're fine. You're right. So I unspec'd it, and then I spec'd into the one that drains 5% of your mana per second in order to get, I think, 30% more damage or something, and I did that one. And when I did that one, my mana decay was more severe than my mana regen, even after taking the big mana regen node at the start of the tree. So I was constantly decaying and running out of mana flasks. Then I looked at the other trees, and the other branches there at the beginning weren't really all that good for me. So what I ended up doing was putting in a lot of points in my passive tree for the mana regen so I could take that one. The point that I'm trying to illustrate with this is it's a huge difference between PoE 1, you beat it, and you get the golden avatar that just is a super godly thing for you. It was probably overpowered, but there's a lot of good ascendancies in PoE 1. And in PoE 2, some of them feel like you don't even really sometimes feel if it's an actual buff. Um, like maybe one of the ones that I can think of in PoE 2 that felt pretty meaningful is Tailwind, when you're like the ranger thing where you're running faster. That one was noticeable. That was really good when you finally pick up Tailwind. But that's something that I would encourage grinding gear games to look at. I feel like the ascendancies are a big moment where you can reward the player for overcoming one of the challenges that you're building. Similar thing on the passive tree. As I was building out my character today, like now the passive tree is severely nerfed. They nerfed the jewel slots. That's like an end game thing. But they toned down a lot of the notables, like Eldritch.
I'm just going to quickly pause to say I do agree with his take on the Ascendancy stuff. Um, I mean, the mana degen thing on Lich, that also kind of sounds like a playtest issue, but not really, because that is probably pretty hard to balance for the campaign and the end game simultaneously. They'd have to find like a ramping formula or something that, changes over time and is not like a static 5%. But I do agree generally with his ascendancy take that there are a lot of ascendancy nodes that provide very little to no immediate power in PoE 2. Um, Honestly, most of them. Like, I know, like on Monk, the Spirit one, if you actually have a good chess piece, getting a lot of extra Spirit does make a noticeable difference. At least it did last league. I agree, Tailwind is kind of noticeable, but in specific, very few of them are ever like, you take this node, and irregardless of whatever else is going on, you're now going to do a decent bit more damage, and you're going to feel it because of this node. Like, even the one in the monk tree doesn't immediately feel like that because you need to have a good chess piece, and then you need to have the right spirit skills with that. But I would like to see some more ascendancy nodes where it's like, take this and your projectiles all of a sudden explode on impact and do just extra damage, just like point blank period. But yeah,
Battery and stuff like that. They just don't want to make it that appealing. You don't want to make it so obvious that you just go run to it. But what ended up happening is, as I was building my Lich, as I was moving around the tree, I found myself like not super insanely excited for any node that I was particularly going for. Though the really good ones were really far away, and the close ones were mostly just small little chunks of additive damage. Now, here's what I don't want the opposite of that. I don't want everything to be a super god tier notable that you just take and you're a god and then you're hitting for trillions of damage and the game is trivial and there's no challenge. I don't want that either. But what I am saying is I I I would love to actually feel more enjoyment going through the passive tree and being like, oh, I finally hit this. I do notice a significant boost in my damage now. I really wasn't feeling that way. And maybe that's in combination with the overall difficulty of the game. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give like some more in-depth constructive feedback as to why some people are feeling that the game is kind of a slog, as people are putting it. One thing I can tell you for sure, this is not up for debate. It's a fact. I can show you right here. Grinding Gear Games at least agrees that a lot of people are not liking it because they just released this hotfix. And essentially what it says, there's a lot of words here. Essentially what it says is in the
Shout out
first
for the
3 acts of the
sub.
campaign, all
Hey,
monsters
Vini.
now have 25% less life. It's actually
Yo,
really funny
Sia
because
VR with the Twitch Prime sub. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much, my man. 3-month Twitch Prime sub. Thank you, bro.
they actually just spawned on full life.
I'm gonna really quickly skip over this part just because we have already seen this
100%
hotfix.
people, that are struggling on the campaign with the difficulty.
I'll try and see his conclusion on it, maybe.
I give them credit. They're listening. They did something literally on the same day. They're trying to help. I give them credit for that. I'm not mad. I got through acts 1 through 3. I'm in act 4 on my witch. I'm in act 2 on my huntress. No problem. So before this hotfix, so I'm not having difficulty. I'm getting through it, but I definitely feel that the game has changed. There's definitely a big shift in the player power and relative to the monster power, and people are really, really noticing. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was the huntress, and I would say that Neversink wrote here. I think he did just a beautiful job here writing this. He just posted this. Already has 33,000 views.
Okay, I'm curious to see this because I feel like I had an interesting experience with the Huntress where I actually enjoyed it.
Anyway, he said he's stuck for 3 hours on the Act 2 boss, and he wants to talk about some problems with the huntress. High on the Act 2.
Oh, wait, is he talking about Jaman Ra? That boss? I guess he doesn't specify which boss, at least we can't see here, but I will say, to be fair, the final boss of Act 2 did take forever to kill. It wasn't impossible, and it only took me like 3 attempts. But even on my 3rd attempt, which was successful, it did take like probably 4 minutes or more. But yeah.
To boss, and he wants to talk about some problems with the huntress. High effort, low payoff. He said, why wouldn't I just whirlwind and twister spam versus stop and you parry and you disengage and you get the frenzy charge and then you use the attack? So to me, playing the huntress like that properly felt like playing Street Fighter instead of playing an ARPG. But I also recognize there's a lot of classes and ascendancies that are going to be in PoE 2, and not every class has to be for me. And in fact, classes that fit different archetypes or different playstyles are good. So the fact that the huntress has this playstyle is probably really cool. But the problem is the low payoff. It never seemed worth it to me either. I agree with Neversink. Maybe when you actually theory craft it and math it out, maybe it is better if you execute it perfectly. But this was just doing something like this, or doing what's it called, rake with the little aftershocks. It was just so much easier that there needs to be a better balance of, if we're gonna concentrate this hard and execute this many perfect combos, we've got to be able to get more output out of it. There's too many buttons. He plays with WASD, the dot.
I don't think the payoff was that bad. I don't think it was that low of payoff. I mean, very, very early on, it feels pretty rough. Like Stormlance and Explosive Spear before you have Barrage and Thunderous Leap. And it's like a little bit difficult to actually detonate your Stormlances on the bosses, particularly if they're moving around a lot. It can feel a little bad, but it felt pretty good. With that being said, I haven't tried Whirlwind plus Twister Spam or the Rake Stomping Ground method yet. I don't want to like completely remap my current character and like reset the passive tree and all that stuff to do so. I will try that in the future, but the setup that I was doing was neither of those two things. It was one of like the Street Fighter combo type builds and felt good. So I don't know.
Attack, the potion, the parry, the disengage. I play with force moves, so it's a
Except Elemental Infusion felt like ass. I'm gonna be honest.
Easier for me, but a lot of people were.
And to be fair, yeah. Also, I don't really parry. Like I'm using like a combo build, but I don't really parry anymore. Although I said this a lot on my stream yesterday, the parry plus disengage combo I think would actually feel good if disengage just hit parried targets 100% of the time. If disengage did like a little circular AoE around you and not just like the cone in front of you, if it did a full 360 AoE to the point to where if there was a parried monster near you, it would consume the debuff and give you the frenzy charge and do the AoE damage, I actually think parry disengage would be would be decent and would feel good.
Complaining about this. The poor mobility, we have the disengage, but the gap closers aren't enough.
This is that's wrong. I'm just going to say it. That is wrong. Maybe before you get Thunderous Leap, but once you have Thunderous Sleep, disengage plus Thunderous Sleep feels insane. Like, the mobility is ridiculously good once you have disengage and Thunderous Sleep. You can literally perma just jump around like crazy. So yeah, I don't know. I can't say I agree with the poor mobility take.
This, I would say this was exactly a problem for me, but other people were agreeing with it. No good melee attacks. You want to know another thing that, again, maybe if you actually punch it in a path of building, I'm wrong, but just looking at it just with the naked eye, looks like almost all of the nodes that are very close to the starting thing are for projectiles. I go left, 40% projectile here. I was just wondering, I was like, so I guess I'm just playing projectiles and my melee is just kind of there for flavor to either freeze the boss with the icy one, or you take the regular spear jab because it has like the highest base damage, or take the rake just to apply the bleed. But if this was a class that was actually supposed to synergize, I didn't feel the synergies like coming out of the entrance of the passive tree to build like an actual kind of hybrid character. I felt really forced. I felt like I was being very dumb if I didn't spec into the projectile part mostly. So I completely agree with what he said here. And not
That's
enough
kind of
support
fair, I
gems.
guess.
So the way that I would phrase this is there's a lot of support gems, but it still seems pretty obvious like which are the really good ones and which ones just seemingly I can't really logically take this in my build. It doesn't really make any sense, or the benefit is very, very low. So I'm excited to see I'm not really excited to see more support gems from grinding gear games going forward. I would like to see support gems that actually truly compete with each other. Where if you gave 10 players a build, anything,
This is definitely true, but harder said than done. So, or easier said than done, but this is definitely true. There are a lot of support gems that you look at them and you're like, is there even a single build I would take this on? Like, why is this even in the game? But
Eye Strike Monk, and you say, what were the 5 supports you'd put on Eye Strike? And there were like actually 10 really good choices, and they pick a bunch of different combinations for different reasons. That would be like an ideal state of the game for me. What I don't need is 300 choices, but 5 of them are just clearly the best. Now, that's easier said than done. That's essentially just me sitting from the comfort of my own home saying, well, just design a perfect game, grinding gear games. Like, well, why can't you do that? Grinding gear games made Path of Exile 1. They make good games. And I think that there have been some improvements to the game with this patch from 0.1. I acknowledge that. I acknowledge their insane speed to try to address a high level issue with a lot of players. I give you massive credit for that. That was great. This video was just to start a discussion in hopefully a constructive way of some of the ways, some of the reasons that we're feeling a certain way. I would love to see the pacing of the game feel a little bit better, kind of ramp up to a difficult fight, and then have that difficult fight, and then a good reward for beating it. Another one, and then we go to the trial and we beat it, and the ascendancy is really juicy right from the beginning. Some really cool things that you're hunting for in the passive tree, rather than taking every notable and crucifying it and making you really think, well, do I want this or not? When every single decision is an opportunity cost or a huge trade-off, I have less fun solving it, right? It's fun to solve that sometimes, but when you're solving it all time, it becomes more homework than a video game. So those are some thoughts here. I guess I'm going to stop talking. I would love to know what you guys think.
I'll say I agree with that, but like, I agree with the premise there, and I'm just gonna really quickly preface what I'm about to say with I'm enjoying the update. I love Path of Exile 2 and I love Rax, but I'm like a little confused just because it does feel like that already exists. The thing that he's talking about, where when I think of Act 1 and even Act 2, like Geonor and Jamon Ra, the final bosses of Act 1 and 2, they did feel significantly more difficult and were much longer to kill than the previous bosses in the respective acts. And the zone immediately before the final bosses in both acts was also significantly more difficult than the previous zones. The Dreadnought in Act 2 is quite difficult. Obviously, you're getting stunned a shit ton, and there's just a plethora of mobs, like in a tight space. And then the boss took me like 4 minutes. Seems like a lot of people got stuck on that boss, just like hard stuck. And then Act 1 is similar, where the manor is extremely difficult. There's a lot of chaos damage going out, or I believe it's chaos damage, but the blood pools and the big brute mobs that'll like poke you with their tongue and like instantly stun you for 5 seconds and just kill you. And then Geonor is reasonably difficult. I mean, it depends on your build, but particularly for Huntress, because he's moving around so much, it did take a while. So I feel like, I mean, I completely agree with the premise, but I feel like it's hard, or it's going to be hard to move in that direction much further than the game already is without trivializing the parts that lead up to the final act of bosses and the difficult part. But I've been saying the same thing for a long time, where in a game like this, they want to ideally there should be a balance between, there's times where I'm just blasting, I can watch something on my second monitor, I'm chilling, I'm just farming, having a good time, and then there should be moments where I actually have to stop looking at my second monitor, lock in, pay attention, dodge mechanics, things of that nature. And striking that balance is the difficult part. So
I'm sure there are some people that are going to sit there and tell me I'm a piece of shit noob and I have no idea what I'm talking about.
of course not.
It's whatever. But love to hear what you guys think, and I am looking forward to the future development of POE 2. I'm still pretty confident by the launch it's going to be a great game. Not worried at all, and the journey will
of
continue.
course.
I'm going to go back on the Huntress tomorrow. Let's see how good of a build we can make. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a great video by Rax. Very thoughtful discussion. Very good. I think this type of feedback and constructive criticism and stuff is very, very valuable. And in today's day and age, it's very easy for content creators to just get like sucked up into the drama and the rage baiting and the freakouts and everything, like the public freakouts on stream. Like, it's so easy for people to just act like buffoons. So I always appreciate like a more, reasonable, level-headed, logical approach, and Rax usually provides that. To be fair, on his stream, he can be a bit out there, but I still love his stream. And last but not least, take it easy, chefs.